I mentioned in a quick fire question about current state of construction technology software. I asked whether it was dead as a standalone business model. I said something like generally yes. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I have an example. I built in one weekend an estimator tool for building works. Part of that was because there really wasn't anything available today that worked for how we operate. So companies like Building Works, Zero RFI, we're able to quickly prototype and develop platforms. I've never coded in my life, and I'm able to build what I need today to fill these voids, to make our operations more efficient. So I feel like there's certain technologies that, are more safe than others.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to dive in today about Zero RFI. So this is a new business that just recently announced a funding round with General Catalyst. It's founded by the infamous KP Reddy. So looking forward to hearing it from you guys and understanding what it's all about. And I hope by the end of this, everyone else will understand too and hear hear the battle cry from Zero RFI themselves. Are you ready, David?
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Great to be here, Owen.
Okay then. Is construction tech software dead as a standalone business model?
To a certain extent, yes.
Would Zero RFI exist without General Catalyst's money?
I think in terms of VC capital,
Yes.
probably not. Other VCs would be investing. So I guess that's not a direct yes or no answer, but no, it wouldn't in terms of the funding because of what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. Is an owner's rep firm worth more today than it was 5 years or even 1 month ago? But the question is 5 years ago.
In terms of 5 years ago, depends entirely whether they figured out the data. I think it's going to come down to, are you advancing with the times and are you able to provide a better outcome for the owners? So worth more if you're able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Would someone like a large general contractor ever end up buying a company like Zero RFI?
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing a lot of VC or a lot of bigger GCs investing in the space already.
Interesting. Okay. Are general contractors generally more ready for an owner that has arguably better data than they do?
Yeah, they are.
They're ready?
Yeah, because that's one of the complaints that you have on the contractor side is the time for decisions. And if the owner's rep has better data, they're going to be able to provide better responses quicker. So there'll be less waiting time.
Interesting. Okay. In 5 years, will the job of owner's rep exist in the form that it does today?
I think owner reps will be able to handle a lot more construction volume than they are today. So it'll be slightly different. I think it'll be improved.
Okay, fine. One sentence then. This is just warrants a slightly longer answer. But what's the one thing every construction CEO should stop ignoring about AI this year before someone else does it to them?
Well, I think the ability for them to innovate. A lot of companies are not allowing their people to leverage or use AI and understand how they can actually implement different things within their own organization because they're not able to really tinker with it because of the enterprise and IT security requirements.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I just want to clarify one thing because a number of people here, I think owner's rep as a term is going to be used throughout today. We've obviously used it already a few times. But for people who are listening to this who are outside of the US, and this is mostly UK, Europe, Australian markets, they will be more familiar with the term like client-side project manager or employer's agent, rather than owner's rep. So just to clarify that the roles are pretty much similar, but the terminology in the US is slightly different to wherever else in the world. So with that, David, could you tell me what exactly Zero RFI is?
So Zero RFI is a technology-enabled services company. So we're not selling software, we're selling outcomes. And we're focused on the owner side. So owner reps and also building works, kind of the building data end piece. And also KP Reddy Co. with our advisory services and things we do with owners and the research that we do with owners. So Zero RFI is really focused on the outcomes for owners and working with the existing companies within AEC to provide those better outcomes. So we're really attacking the interstitial spaces right now. Certain areas that really haven't been paid attention to, whether it be the technology um, or just the overall business model. So we're really focused on providing those better outcomes for owners and leveraging AI to develop internal technology to do so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what does it look like at a typical owner's rep company? Like one you might find just a stereotypical out of the book. Maybe there's a few big names that exist in the industry in the US. Certainly over here in the UK there is. What does it look like if you're one of them versus if you're someone like Zero RFI?
So it's really your human resource capital and relationships in your traditional sense, hourly billings. It's just another project manager that is focused on the owner's interests and helping to deliver a project. With Zero RFI, we have the tool belt. We're not just having to adopt what's available today. We're building what's missing. So we're aggregating all the data on the project to provide better information much faster than you typically would be in the traditional sense with what's been available today.
Hmm. What is this like in a practical sense? So, like, what does Zero RFI have access to that, like a traditional owners rep firm doesn't?
Well, you think about all the different silos that we have in the industry today, all the different platforms, all the different communication channels. They're all separate and siloed. We're bringing those all together within our foundation zero layer in order to have more insights and being able to connect dots from different data sources that maybe a human wouldn't be able to figure out just because there's so much data generated on a project on a day-to-day basis and the decision time takes way too long. So being able to make the field more efficient and providing the owner with more information very quickly is really where it's going to come down to getting jobs done quicker and faster and cheaper. So we're really looking at how do we, and I think the name kind of explains itself, Zero RFI,
It's
one
a
of the
good
biggest
name. I really like
problems in the industry. So we're also focused on, that you think of communication. Um, RFIs are a form of communication. Now, when you think of the lack of information, which creates those RFIs, we're focused on solving that problem too. Not just the traditional, forwarding emails and tracking things in Procore, but really digging down into what's missing on this project so you can set it up for success much better. And having the internal tech team to be able to develop things to solve these problems really is a differentiator between other owner rep firms and what we're doing.
Hmm. So what is so do you say internal tech team? Like I want to understand exactly what this internal tech team is and like what the technology is. Um and I also want to understand like you mentioned something like I can't remember what the exact terminology you used, like visibility of data or something, but but the question is, are you therefore then plugging into like other companies' data sources that might be involved within the project, i.e. the design team, the contractors team, consultants, whoever else is typically involved?
Yeah, and one of the focus on the technology side is bringing those different sources into one centralized layer. So we're not, pushing saying, "Hey, general contractor, you can't use Procore. You got to use this system." No, we're building ways to be able to say, "Hey, you guys can use whatever platform you're used to." So we don't have to deal with an adoption problem. That's one of the biggest issues with tech in construction is adoption. You hear about all the pilots going for one job and then nothing's really happening. Nobody can prove an ROI. So we're not forcing the industry to have to change the way that they operate. We're just providing a way to allow us to really leverage what those platforms are providing. Whether it be, Procore information, emails, spreadsheets, we're bringing that all in, but we're developing the way to not force people to make changes so that we can provide better services.
Hmm. Okay, it makes sense. And so you obviously built some proprietary technology within the company already. Like what does that look like?
So it's going to be under constant development as we work through these things. I mean, it's getting easier to develop, but still, some of the problems we're solving, they're challenging problems. So we're building, drawing analysis tools. How do you analyze drawings so that you're able to really respond quickly? Um, how are you able to bring in your emails into the fold? A lot of projects are built mostly, and you probably heard KP say this, on spreadsheets and emails. So how do you bring all that in together? Because you're going to, in some projects, you have multiple people on the owner rep side working on jobs, when you look at the bigger projects. And so you've got different information depending on which person's involved with that specialization. Um, other things, like with our building works side that I'm running, um, focusing on how do we generate a better data repository for the owner, um, and then be able to really ultimately create something that the owner can have full ownership of and not have to pay for a subscription in order to access their own data. Um, so-
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
One poorly managed incident. That's all it takes to demolish the entire profit on your project. And right now, the only thing standing between you and that disaster is your superintendent showing up at 3 a.m. buried in paperwork before the day's even started. That's why BreadCrumb exists. Not to add more technology to the job site, but to give the people running it tools that actually work the way they do. Safety plans signed off, orientations completed on any phone in any language, permits processed without the back and forth, no paper, no chasing signatures, all synced directly into Procore. With OSHA penalties reaching into the tens of thousands, that kind of oversight isn't just a nice to have, it's everything. Over 1 million workers across 50,000 projects globally have BreadCrumb in their pocket. Book a demo at breadcrumb.co. That's BreadCrumb.co. Links in the show notes. Major construction projects are complex, and construction managers know that every day things don't go as planned. Unfortunately, most don't know what and why until it's too late. The best construction leaders know that the secret to delivering on schedule is for everyone to be planning together, committing to targets, and tracking their performance every day. By combining look-aheads, weekly work plans, visual staging diagrams, and daily activity briefings into one multiplayer platform, AFEX is where the world's leading projects are planned and coordinated. Join the largest projects and contractors across Europe, the UK, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand and discover why at afex.co. In construction, precision matters. Every budget line, every schedule, every document. But too often, project data is scattered across tools and departments, creating risky silos. That's where ArcDesk comes in. ArcDesk is the all-in-one construction management platform designed to connect your entire project operation, from opportunity through to tender, all the way to handover. With real-time dashboards, cost control, scheduling, procurement, and document management in one place, ArcDesk gives you complete visibility and control. Trusted by contractors, subcontractors, and asset owners worldwide, ArcDesk has powered landmark projects from shopping centers to Europe's tallest buildings. If you're ready to reduce risk, protect your margins, and deliver projects with confidence, discover ArcDesk today. Visit arcdesk.com, that's ARCH desk.com, and see how leading firms are building smarter with ArcDesk. Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Can you share some case studies or like use cases whereby the client has got a better or significantly better outcome because they use Zero RFI technology and service?
Well, we just acquired our first owner rep firm, and we are, getting close to being able to deploy the tech that we've been building. So in terms of, direct case studies of, hey, we did this project, we just acquired our first owner rep firm this year, earlier this year, Brookwood Group. And so we're rolling the tech out now. So I don't have an exact, case study to say, hey, this is
Yeah.
what it was before, what happened. We're rolling that technology out right now.
Yeah, fine. One for a future episode. Okay, so one thing I did mention when you like this maybe is a controversial one, but why not just stack existing technology? Why build the technology internally? Why not use some of the AI tools that exist in the wider world already to provide a similar product or outcome?
Yeah, I mean, we're leveraging stuff that is available too. It doesn't make sense for us to just rebuild Procore. The system's already out there. Our focus is the outcomes, delivering better outcomes. So if another platform works already and it can work with everything else that we're building, we'll use it. There's certain reality capture platforms like Track 3D. We're working with them. So we're not going to rebuild reality capture because there's enough people already focused on building that. And since we're not selling software, we don't have to. We're really focused on those interstitial spaces where there isn't anything available, or something that's easy for us to just build, to use within our own internal services. So we are constantly looking at platforms and understanding: do we need to build this from scratch, or can we just use what's available today?
Hmm.
So that makes it a lot easier. We're just really focused on building technology that allows us to do better services. And if there's a system that works better out there, there's a lot of complex platforms out there that have taken a lot of time to develop. So we're focusing our technology resources on building those interstitial spaces right now.
Very cool. All right then. So General Catalyst, one of the biggest names VCs globally, put I was like $13 million, I think, behind
hmm
it. Like what was their like memo? What did they see in this in Zero RFI?
Well, so that's one of their strategies, is their AI enabled service roll up, right? So they're not trying to change an industry, necessarily by just developing new technology. They're buying healthcare systems, to improve healthcare, because that gives them more control, and control of adoption too. So if you're a software provider, the adoption is reliant on your customers adopting and performing, using the system, consistently and correctly. So General Catalyst is looking at it as, if we want to really impact an industry, we got to be providing services, and we can leverage technology to provide better services. So then, as you know, construction is a very complicated industry, and there's a lot of different players involved in it in terms of within AEC, from the architects, engineers, general contractors, subcontractors, and manufacturers. So if we're able to provide a better service, we'll have more impact on an industry, instead of just developing a new Revit or a new Procore. Um, and ultimately, change management is a very difficult thing to do within construction because of how many people you have in play as well.
The acquisitions were announced at the launch of the company. Had Brickwood Group, you already mentioned some of these, by the way, but I'll just mention them again. Brickwood Group, Building Works, KP Reddy Co. So why these three companies are the kind of makeup of each of those? Yeah, if you could just explain that.
Yeah, so starting with KP Reddy Co. I was doing research, owner focused research last year, and a lot of advisory work. And a lot of this all kind of ties back to the owner. Brookwood Group, obviously, owner rep firm. Building Works, focused on the building documentation for the owner. Although we also work with general contractors, but the end deliverables for the owner. So the big focus is, kind of tied back to one thing: delivering better outcomes for the owner, helping the owners adopt new ways of doing things, um, and also creating awareness, right? So, our research has informed a lot of what we're doing today. And we've talked to hundreds of owners, from the CapEx teams to the operating teams, and understanding where is AEC kind of, not necessarily put the attention to those different areas. Because at the end of the day, the owner's the most important person, because without them, there wouldn't be a building. So all those three companies are really focused on the owner outcome and assisting the owner as we work through this new technologies, innovation stage. So, um, really giving us that direct connection point, instead of just being, standalone services companies. we're collaborating across our different acquisitions to ultimately achieve the end goal, which is to provide better outcomes for the owner.
Mm-hmm. What can you tell us a little bit about Brookwood? Building Works, as you mentioned earlier, that this is something that you personally manage. So yeah, just to explain, what I want to try and understand is there anything different between Building Works, what it was before the acquisition by Zero RFI, and what it is and what it will become?
Yeah, so Building Works was actually founded in 1999 in St. Louis, Missouri. The biggest difference is going to be the resources that we have available to improve and expand the service offering map. Building Works can operate literally on any project across the globe. We don't have to be on site to do what we do when it comes to the building data, but really being able to provide those resources that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do, with new technology development, with the resources that Zero RFI provides to expand, and ultimately, provide a better deliverable for the owner as we improve things. We've already made some improvements with the platform since we acquired it in December of last year. Um, and those improvements are only going to continue to get better and better. And also working with how are the owners adopting AI with their building data, and really having the resources from the KP Reddy side when we need them to advise the owner and really help with that adoption so that they can really actually leverage the final deliverable that we're providing more and more as things get implemented.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned something to do with Building Works in that people have to pay to get access to their data in the current state. Can you just what is the current model? I'm just trying to understand because I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So Building Works, we're actually, we don't sell any subscriptions. We're selling a service. So a lump sum service offering, and then we're able to deliver the data in an interface to the owner that they have within their own infrastructure. So they don't have to sign up for a subscription and pay, 50 or $100 a month, whatever it would be, to be able to access their building data. They control it. They can decide where are we going to host this, on a computer, on a thumb drive, on a shared server, in our cloud infrastructure. So really giving them control of it so they can do whatever they want with it. And there's no roadblocks, there's no APIs that they need to build, and hope that nothing changes and breaks. It's all within their ecosystem. And, as the building changes, that is an updatable database as well. So all the different data that's generated when you build a building, giving the owner lifetime access to that data so that they can leverage it, not just in facilities, but in future designs and builds too. That's one of the other problems that we deal with in construction is the consistent prototyping. Every building's different, and you need to be able to leverage the information that was generated on one building for the next building. So you're not constantly asking the same questions, so that you're improving on things, so that you're taking feedback and you have a repository of that feedback. So you're not starting from scratch all the time. So there's a lot of different reasons why the Building Works model works for owners. But just sheer data governance ownership for the owner is one of them. And it's an important one as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. I mentioned in a quick fire question about current state of construction technology software. I asked whether it was dead as a standalone business model. My feeling was that you said something like you generally yes. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have an example. I built in one weekend an estimator tool for Building Works. Part of that was because there really wasn't anything available today that worked for how we operate. So companies like Building Works, Zero RFI, were able to quickly prototype and develop platforms. I built this platform and it's multiple different integrations. Being able to integrate with other systems that we're using, like CRMs, and Notion and other platforms, Google Workspace, is not that difficult. Especially if you're not building software for enterprise deployment, it's a lot lower barrier to entry. I've never coded in my life,
Mm.
and I'm able to build what I need today to fill these voids to make our operations more efficient. Both through producing the deliverable, but also tracking. Um, and so I see a lot of companies being able to start to develop what they need for their processes and not have to consistently just adopt the processes that are developed within the construction technology industry. Um, as AI, we see new models coming out every month that are getting better and better at developing platforms. So I think you're probably going to see a lot more companies also doing the same thing. As they realize, hey, we just need to hire a couple of software engineers, um, or even a full team. Those costs will, can very well equal the cost of a subscription of the technology that they're paying for, and it may not be 100% perfect for them. So I feel like there's certain technologies that are more safe than others, but AI is only going to get better. It's only going to be easier to develop and deploy. I do think it's still important to have that software development, expertise within deploying, because some of these firms are very, very large. So it is almost an enterprise deployment for them. Other companies, smaller ones, they don't have as complex of workflows. They'll be able to build what they need and then just maintain it themselves.
I also just want to highlight something you also said is like if it's not needed for enterprise deployment. I think this is a key thing here because, like, obviously this estimating tool you're developing, I don't think your intention is for it to become some standalone scalable SaaS product. It's more for your
No.
own internal benefit, for a more specific use case than what you would typically expect for some kind of scalable software that would be in the market. Yeah. Okay, David, tell us, can you do anything retrospectively with owner's reps data?
So I don't necessarily think that it's always about historical data, and sometimes that could be a bad thing, right? Because if the data is bad, you're going to get bad, training. So, the real thing is, how are you leveraging the data on that current project more so than, hey, I've got 20 years of historical data from projects. You kind of look at and think about, AlphaZero, for instance, right? With Google DeepMind, when they found that they were able to train their models better without any human data to start, and faster, and get better results than using the human data to start and train. So I think it's, when I say the more data they have and the better, it's more leveraging it on that current project to really streamline those things. But yeah, just think about construction tech or construction in general, and how dirty a lot of that data is. How it's not, it's different from project to project, to person to person. It's not consistent. So it's not necessarily about the training overall on the systems. It's about just how are you leveraging it for that project, and how is that allowing you to scale without having to necessarily add a lot more people. So being able to handle more volume of work with less people. We're underbuilt as a country, so there's a lot of projects that need to happen, and the constraint is currently humans, um, to be able to build it. You're constantly hearing about labor shortages. It's not just in the field; it's also in the office. That experience gap. My generation, I graduated in 2008. And the economy was not good at all between 2008 and 2012. A lot of people, on the older millennial side, did not go into the industry because they couldn't find a job. So they went to other industries. We're starting to feel that within the office now. So we need to be able to scale without necessarily having that expertise. And AI and how you leverage the data on the projects is one way that you're going to be able to do that.
Okay, moving forward. So we've learned that you're acquiring companies so far, owner's rep firm, advisory firms, closeout firms. So yeah, and you mentioned the names of those already. But how does this scale? So KP, I think, said there's going to be more acquisitions in the near and far term. But how does this scale from here? Like, what does it look like?
So we're not necessarily looking to buy the biggest firms out there, right? Although I think it could be an interesting acquisition. But typically we're looking at 50 people or under, just because when you're deploying new systems, new technology, it's harder to do it in a bigger organization, right? You've got a lot of people who have done it the same way for 40 years. So these mid-size firms that don't have the resources to be able to build their own technology, do things that like we're doing, is kind of the sweet spot for acquisition. and really focusing on all these different interstitial spaces. So we're, looking at many firms today. Can't tell you any information about who and what and when, but we have people that are just focused on M&A right now, and really looking at the opportunities. And a lot of it comes down to, is this a firm that fits our mission, right? Do we think that if we bring them into the ecosystem of Zero RFI, that they're going to be able to provide an impact and operate the way that we're wanting to operate? Um, so there's going to be more announcements coming, probably this year, and it'll make sense. I kind of how I'm positioning it is that anything we acquire, we're looking for that to be another cog in the wheel of that ecosystem and delivering better outcomes for owners. It could be multiple owner reps that only focus on certain regions, certain markets that we want to address. So there's a lot of different things that come into play as we analyze these deals, but we're also looking at people that want to continue to work and run their companies, but want to have the resources like Zero RFI will provide.
Mm. Are you able to tell us what the acquisition agreement with these companies is? Like, obviously not specifics, but like how are the deals kind of made up?
Well, we're acquiring companies that, the CEO of Brookwood is still running Brookwood Group. We're Building Works a little bit different because the owners were wanting to retire. But typically we're looking at companies that want to, maintain their current structure in terms of hierarchy, and then ultimately be owned by Zero RFI. So in terms of the legal stuff and how the agreements shake out, I think that's more of a deal by deal basis. There's always negotiations. It's not just, hey, you're
Take it or
buying
leave
something
it.
on Amazon, it's the same
Yeah.
way, right? So there's, it's not necessarily super rigid, but that would be a question for you to ask KP next time you have
Yeah,
them.
okay. Tease it out then. Okay, fine. So any owner's rep firm, like project manager, whatever, are they acquiree target, acquisition target, I think is the right term, or are they roadkill? So should they just
Well,
surrender? Should they say, yeah, just buy us?
Well, you kind of need to realize what's happening with technology. And, that's kind of another reason when you had asked me about CEOs in construction, using the tech so you can understand and start to put the pieces together. This is what this is going to do to my company or to my competitors' companies. So I think there's going to be a cliff point, as you see AI getting better and better and better. If you're just trying to be someone that this is how we've always done it, I think that'll eventually turn you into roadkill. Now, construction's always been and always will be a relationship industry too. So I guess relationships is going to be another big thing that we're looking at for acquisitions. But eventually, if you're not able to adopt tech, you're gonna become roadkill.
Love it.
I mean, it's just you're not going to be able to compete. On the quality of the service you're delivering, at the cost that you're delivering it, at the scale that you're able to deliver it, and reliability. Owners really, they'll pay more for certainty. So if you're able to provide better certainty than, company down the road, the owner's going to probably go with you. And then you're going to be developing those relationships because you're going to be known as being a more predictable company that they could hire for their projects.
Mm. Okay. Are you just targeting US, or are you also looking internationally or other regions in the world?
Right now in the U.S., I'm not sure when KP is going to look outside the U.S., but everyone we're hiring is within the U.S., including our technology team. Um, so that's our main focus. I mean, the U.S. market's massive, right? So I think once you kind of saturate that market, then it probably would make sense. But KP is always looking at things. I don't think he's ever discounting, um, opportunities.
Yeah, makes sense. Fair enough. Okay, so in a quick fire, we asked you a question about are most general contractors ready when an owner has better data than them do? So, tell us a little bit more about that. Do they get scared? Do they like it? Do they push back, or do they start to mine their data? Like,
Yeah, I think, I mean, just coming from the contractor world, um,
You're at Turner, right?
you're I was at Turner. I was at many contractors across the country, and it's the same thing on all the jobs. Owner with better information that can provide quicker and better and more certain responses is only going to allow for the contractor teams to be more efficient. Um, just speaking from experience, I would love the owner to have more information, better understanding of the job than one that doesn't. Some people may think, well, I can, sell this better because they don't understand what we're doing, but they're also responsible for managing all the different firms that are on the project and making sure that the owner is getting the best result that they possibly can. So a smarter owner rep is only going to provide better solutions for the whole project. Um, so I wouldn't be scared of it. You should want that, unless you're doing something shady, right?
Whoa, whoa. Hmm. That's an interesting point. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a rabbit hole. Anyway, let's carry on. So okay, fair enough. Okay, so recently A16Z released a thesis on the industry saying that they believe that the opportunity is in the design layer. It sounds like you're not looking at the design layer, you're looking at more of the orchestration layer, so the owner's rep, project management, closeout, and so on and so forth. Um, do you agree with the A16Z thesis? One and two, why are you targeting the orchestration layer?
So in terms of, targeting like the design layer, um, it goes back to our name, Zero RFI. That's the biggest problem on projects. I wouldn't say that's the only opportunity though. I mean, there's a lot that goes into building a building. A lot of different firms that are required to build a building. Um, in terms of just sheer technology, I think that's one of the most important layers is the design layer. But we're targeting the services because we're not targeting technology as like a SaaS solution. Um, so I think it kind of puts us a little bit different in terms of the opportunity. And the orchestration layer kind of is, you know, with our core thesis and what we're doing, targeting the owner side, filling in those gaps that have been not paid attention to from the technology side. And then we'll expand from there. I can't tell you where we'll be in 5 years. Will we be in design? We very well could be, but it's all going to come down to really solving one problem and then focusing on the next problem and then really bringing it all together so that ultimately it's the same MO, delivering better outcomes for the owner. So if we have to attack the design layer in the future, then that's probably what we'll do. But if somebody else has figured that out, maybe we acquire them. Maybe we build what they have. It's just, with this, as fast as AI is progressing, it opens up more and more opportunities to be able to easily get into a certain space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Tell us why. I think there was this piece done by PitchBook recently where a number of VCs said that they don't believe that AI roll-ups work as a model. And I think recently Renovo Home Partners, which was a General Catalyst backed company, collapsed. So why is Zero RFI different to any other PE play with a tech wrapper?
We'll bring in industry experts. I come from the industry. We have other people, obviously, that are within Zero RFI that come from the industry, and we understand the different pain points. We're not going out and spending millions on developing our own LLM, right? So our approach allows us to, scale with existing operating structures and then being able to deploy those internally. But we're still providing the same service. We're not necessarily bringing in a new service. I guess you could say Building Works might be a new service because typically the general contractor is handling it, but they also don't like to handle it. So we're not, coming in and saying, here's an entirely new way of doing it. You need to adopt these new processes in order for us to sell to you. We're adopting to the market as it is today, but providing the technology in order to operate within the current structure as it is today. Um, and working well with the industry as a whole. So we're not necessarily, hey, we're replacing, you don't need a general contractor anymore, right? Yeah, you do. Um, but we're helping the general contractor perform better because of how we're setting ourselves up to deploy within the current structure, contract structure. We're not saying we can only do IPD. It doesn't matter the contract structure, we can operate within it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, fair enough. All right, David. Can you paint a picture for us? Like, what does it look like in 5 years? Zero RFI.
Well, I think we're doing a lot more revenue per person than you are today. And I think that's going to be the increased output that we're going to be able to produce. The certainty layer is going to be another big one, being able to provide more reliable outcomes to the owner with better quality, bridging the gap across the different verticals. I mentioned before, you've got architects, engineers, general contractors, subcontractors, manufacturers, suppliers, all these different players within AEC that are required in order to put a building together. We're going to be able to achieve more volume per person than we would be today, or a typical firm would be able to do today.
David, have you got
Yeah.
any call to action for the industry, people that might be listening to this?
Well, I would say in terms of the industry and individuals, if you're not tinkering with AI today, it's gonna be a problem for you in the future. You need to be using these things, even if you're just playing around with them on your personal computer because your company won't allow you to have certain things. The things that we're able to do with Cloud Cowork and code and chat is if you just follow Anthropic, everything it seems like they have a new release every other day. You know, the, and it's kind of just proofs in the pudding, right? About how fast things are changing on the AI, just on the AI side. So if you're not using these tools, it's a skill that's going to be extremely important. And it's also, when I play with it on the side, outside of just the work I'm doing for Zero RFI, it helps me understand what could be possible within what we're doing. It may take a little bit of time for it to mature in order to be deployable, but knowing what it is able to do and then understanding where you can deploy it to improve your current position is very important. And I think I mentioned that with what CEOs of construction tech companies, or not construction tech, but construction companies. Um, I think just using it, really, really pushing it to the max and thinking about different ways that you can leverage it in your day to day and not being, this is how we've always done it type of people. Um, I think is one of the more important things you could be doing today and right now.
Mm-hmm. Are you hiring or anything right now or looking for types of companies?
Yeah. I mean, we just hired a ton of people. Brookwood Group is hiring a bunch of owner reps. We have positions within Building Works because we're looking at the way that we're going to be scaling and are. Um, as long as you're mission aligned and you feel the problems within the industry and you want to be a part of the solution, this is the right company for you to work for. Um, we operate like a startup. It's not just about the hours, but the pivot ability. So we're not just necessarily going to stick on one path. If we figure out a better path, and that a lot of that comes with these improvements. With all the cloud releases, it could potentially change your workflow. Um, and that's another cool thing about Zero RFI is we're able to pivot if it makes sense for the company, or if we just want to test things out to see, hey, is this a better thing? I think KP had mentioned on one of his last podcasts on his channel about not necessarily always maintaining the same process. You could be doing a process one way this week, and maybe next week is completely different. And it's all comes down to about what outcome do you need, because you may be able to get that same outcome with different ways and leveraging different technology suites.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, David. Thank you so much.
Great to be here on.